Welcome to High Stakes. I'm your host, Tracey Devlyn. On this show, I chat with authors about the moments in their stories that change everything, what's at stake, what it costs, and why we can't look away. From thrillers to romance to sci-fi and beyond. Let's get to it. Joining me today is #1 New York Times bestselling author Sandra Brown to talk about her new steamy thriller, Bloodlust. Welcome to the show, Sandra.
Thank you, Tracy. I'm so excited to meet you, and thank you for having me.
My absolute pleasure. Before we get into our bookish talk, I just wanted to mention how much I love your Ask Me Anything series that you've been doing on Instagram and TikTok. It's
Oh,
as a
really?
reader, as I mentioned, I'm a fan of yours, but as a reader, it's always wonderful to look behind the scenes with your favorite authors, and I hope you're having fun with those videos.
I'm having a lot of fun with them. And in fact, later today, after we do this, I'm going to be recording some more. And my marketing person gathers them off of TikTok and Instagram, and then gives me a list. And she says, you choose what you want to answer. But some are about the writing, of course,
Mhm.
and my work habit and schedule, etc. But then others are just like I had recently, which I did another TikTok on, asking me if I rode a horse. It can be if I was a horseback rider. So
You're from
it can,
Texas. Of course you've ridden a
I
horse,
know, and Fort
right?
Worth of all places. And
Yeah,
so that was a fun one to
yeah, I bet.
answer. So I'm really always curious, what people are curious about me. Um, I've been out there for so long, you'd think they know a lot more, but of course we have these new formats now, where we can reach hundreds of people at the same time. So it's really been fun. I went into TikTok really kicking and screaming because it was like just another
Yeah.
thing to do, but it's
Distraction,
really
right?
been fun. And I have a lovely lady that helps me with all the technical stuff and everything, and she does all the recordings and all of that. So she makes it pretty painless.
Oh, that's good. It's nice that you have somebody to help guide you through that.
Yes.
That's one of
Yes.
my I guess hiccups of getting on TikTok myself is because it's like, well, what could I possibly add out there
Right.
that would be unique enough, that would be interesting enough,
Interesting.
you know,
Exactly.
kind of like that ROI, your return on investment kind of thing. It's like if I'm not writing, I'm doing that. I would hope that I could get something, out of it, or maybe for the readers. Maybe it's just purely for the readers, and that's all it is.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that, we all are this way. We're very curious about uh, the the real life of, so-called celebrity. And it's pretty dull and boring to me. I live such a normal, ordinary, work life, but when things come up and I'll go, why? Who cares? She'll come up with an idea for a TikTok and I'll go, who cares? And she goes, everybody who's ever read your books care, so
Yeah,
I've
it's
had to
true.
relax a lot about it. Yeah, I've had to
Yeah,
relax
yeah,
my original thinking of it.
yeah. Well, what I loved about one of your recent videos, it was an unboxing video for Bloodlust, but
Yes.
it showed that even after publishing, I don't know, I think you're getting close to 80 books if you haven't hit it yet, that you still get really excited about seeing your physical book for the first time, and I
Well,
think that is amazing.
it's kind of like after a year gestation period, I'm seeing the birth. It's like when I get those books, it truly is like, oh, gee, all of those hours that I spent doing this
Mhm.
is now here. It's come to fruition, and I guess it's a affirmation that I can still do it. And I want to share the story that I thought was interesting, entertaining, engrossing. Will also appeal to the reader in that same way that they'll go, "This is good, this is good." Some may not think so, but it does give me um, self-gratification. Writers have to wait a long time to hear the applause of their audience. And that's
Yeah.
when the book comes out. And like I'll be going on tour and after March 17th when the book comes out. And it's a long time in coming to get to talk to your audience and they are reacting because a singer performs a song and everybody applauds, but putting words on paper takes a much longer length of time. And so we have to, and I say we, speaking on behalf of all of my colleagues, but we have to wait a long time before we hear the reaction of the
Hmm.
audience. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, when I see that copy, open up that box and see that copy, it kind of gives me cold chills.
Yeah, no, that's great. And all that hard work is packaged now. I have the ARC, so I
Yeah.
hopefully the final copy is just as pretty, I'm sure it is. Uh to see to see the actual book in this beautiful, striking cover
Cover.
is just kind
Yeah.
of like icing on the cake, right?
Yeah, they did a good job. Let's see. I just happen to have a hard
Oh, good. Yeah.
uh right here. Of course,
Good.
I don't know how well you can see it with
Yeah, see. Oh,
glare.
yeah, the
But of
red really
course it's
shows up.
shiny and but I thought the cover that, we came up with was so striking
Hmm.
and it kind of tied in to Blood Moon, which this story uh, is kind of a spin-off of, not a sequence to. It's a different story, but um, I thought it fit well with the Blood Moon cover too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you would like to go ahead and chat with us about what Bloodlust is about, I know that readers will be very happy. There's a few cameos from Blood Moon in there that they'll enjoy.
Yeah, well, you'll probably have to shut me up because once I start talking about it, I get wound up. Um, when I finished Blood Moon, there was a character in that story who was the hero's best friend, and they had worked together as investigators. But his name was Mitch Haskell, and he w was a DEA undercover agent. And John, the hero of Blood Moon, calls on him to assist in some aspects of this case he's working on. So Mitch comes in at very pivotal times, very pivotal scenes in Blood Moon. And he just I didn't know he existed till he showed up in a scene and I just fell in love with him immediately. And he kind of provided some comic relief in Blood Moon because he has a real droll wit and and he was also such a steadfast, no questions asked friend to John, an ally. And it was like, bro, I've got your back.
Yeah.
It just as I've got your back. And fell in love with that aspect of him. Fell in love with the way that he loved his wife and his child and which was born at the very end. Um, and so when I got to thinking about what am I going to write about next, I thought, you know what? I want to write about Mitch. So I moved his story 2 years after Blood Moon concludes. And we find Mitch not quite as he was in Blood Moon. His life has been completely upended and he's in a recovery phase, although he's also in a self-destructive phase.
Hmm.
But he is bent on revenge, on getting revenge. So Bloodlust is very much a revenge plot. And it's like if you're seeking revenge, dig your own grave first. And so that's kind of where he is when the story opens, and then it goes from there. But we see his struggle, and from all of the reviews that have been posted after having read the advanced copy, uh, paid reviewers and ones that just volunteer different formats. Uh, the reviews have been a lot of 5 stars, and they're raving about the character of Mitch. So he appealed not only to me, but he really resonated with the readers of Blood Moon, and I think they'll all be very pleased if some have posted online that they are with his story.
Yeah,
Seeing him in action, but in another vein than he was in Blood Moon.
yeah, he's much altered, as you said, due to the tragedy that he sustained. And whenever I read Blood Moon, the term that came to me for him was kind of like a rascal. He was a little bit of a rascal,
Yeah.
and I think that in that story, Mitch and John had a little bit of a, I don't know, bromance or something like
Yeah,
that going on, you
absolutely. I've
know?
called it that myself.
Oh,
Yeah,
have you? Okay.
completely. Yeah.
So yeah, so I thought it, but you really, because of what Mitch is going through, and John's circumstances are completely different now too, as far as professionally, that their relationship has really upended in this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
They become adversaries. Uh, and let me just say their friendship is very sorely tested. And each of them, I gave each of them a scene where it's all them. It's just internal dialogue, what John's feeling about this. He loves this man, and
Yeah.
yet he wants to choke him,
Mm,
you
yes.
know,
Yeah.
because he sees this downward spiral, spinning out of control. And by the same token, there's a scene that I thought was very poignant, and it was just his Mitch's internal dialogue, and he's thinking, I miss my friend.
Mm.
We've laughed so much, we've shared so much, we've, suffered problems and worked together. So, and he was like, even though he's furious at John, he he thinks, I miss my friend. And
Hmm.
so we see that aspect of him. And I think that's appealing to readers too, because maybe we can all identify with that person, that child, that spouse, that friend who we feel like is really letting us down. And in this instance, both of them feel that way, that the other is just completely letting them down, And so I think that the readers will relate to that aspect of the story. I hope so.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, it was great because you could have easily continued the bromance, right? You could have easily continued that, but you really added an additional layer of conflict
Right.
there because it seemed like at one point Mitch felt very alone
Yes.
in his just his turmoil and grief and things like that he was going through. And so, yeah, yeah, I think it was a great decision to change it up a bit in this book compared to the last time. So that's good.
Well, and now John is also his overseer. He's his
Yes.
boss, so and that and even though they never look at it that way, they always work in tandem. Um, but he's come out of the DEA and is working now as a detective with John in a police department. And I because John though has the title, there is that. And when John has to play that boss card with Mitch, that's when things really ignite.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Well, in Bloodlust, you have a romantic element to it, which I
Yeah.
love. I come from a romantic suspense background, so
Oh,
it was
of
wonderful.
course. It's a Sandra Brown book after all, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I have to say that you really up the romantic tension in this by pairing a patient and his therapist, which obviously is a
Right.
huge taboo. That was great.
Well, full disclosure here, I see a therapist occasionally, and when I told her, I go, I'm gonna pattern a character after you, and she was like, "Oh, is it good?" And I go, it's iffy." And I
That's
said,
a great one.
but it does add to the complexity of the story, and it adds that forbidden element that I always build in. Because if it's easy for these two people to get together, if there are no obstacles, then you don't have a story. They've got to be solving an external problem that they have in common, but they're also coming at it from two different perspectives. And so there's got to be that clash. I've always said if my hero's a fireman, the heroine needs to be an arsonist. I mean, it
Yes.
has to be, there is something, which I have to think about long and hard and to build it in, but there has to be something that makes w- them forbidden to each other, that this is going to be tricky. Uh, Even if they don't feel that way, that other people will feel that way, which is kind of the book I'm working on now. But there has to be some reason why they're getting together is a little beyond the pale. And and it also adds incredible tension, which,
It does indeed.
is 95% of the romantic element in the book is the anticipation and the awareness that neither wants to acknowledge, but they really can't help it. The electricity that was there the minute they saw each other. And so I build on that for as long as I can, that like when, when, and try to, make them wait. So anyway, yes, in this one, it really is tricky because she is his psychotherapist, mandated, by the way, by John. And so Mitch is, talk about kicking and screaming. He had to practically be dragged into that situation. And then it was like, she's such a looker, So anyway, and
Yeah,
she feels the same way.
yes,
So,
yes. I want to be careful of spoilers, so I'm just going to tease a little bit. I really love this scene of them two. I think it was their first meeting, and the thing that he did
oh
to
yeah,
try, yeah,
yeah.
that was
I know.
so
And
much
I
fun,
thought,
and it was
can I really do that? Let's just tease and say he does something that he thinks is going to end this, nip it in the bud.
yeah,
Uh, it didn't work out that way, but that was his. But I thought,
yeah.
oh, can I really have him do that? And I go, I'm not doing it. Mitch is doing it. It was his
Right,
idea, because I
right.
really do. And this is where it gets a little dicey when I'm giving interviews because I sound completely schizophrenic. But I really don't ever feel like I create anything. I feel like the story is there and the characters are living a parallel life, and that I just have to jump into that lane when I sit down at the keyboard and find out what's going on with them and what are they doing and what are they saying. And I feel like more of a reporter or a chronicler, that if that I'm reporting what they do and say because they're a lot smarter than I am and they think of things while I'm asleep at night, and then I come to the keyboard the next day, go, oh, that's a good that's a good place to go today. And so I really kind of let the story um, evolve organically,
Hmm.
unfold as it will, because they think of things, and I build in, of course. When I'm plotting, I build in spikes where I know spikes need to be, where you kind of flip everything and take it another direction or surprise the protagonist or surprise the villain or whatever it is. But then so most of the plot twists, a large majority of plot twists that I've come up with and put into books, I didn't see coming until they
Yeah.
happened. And then it would just be like, I'm so good. but,
Yeah.
but I really wouldn't have envisioned that when I set out to plot the book. And it just came, as
Yeah.
consequence of other scenes ahead of it. So yeah,
I
that and
love
that's
that.
the fun part about fiction writing is that you don't have to stick with the thing that you're going to write about and has to make it correct and authentic and all of that if you're writing nonfiction. Fiction, if you come to a place that you didn't see coming, that's what the reader's going to feel. And that's what you want to happen.
Yeah.
The reader going, oh my gosh, and so
Yeah.
those surprises are the fun part of writing fiction,
Yeah.
at least in my
Yeah.
estimation.
Absolutely. No, it's almost kind of like you want to give yourself a high five that
Yeah,
it came to you because sometimes these things take a while to come to you,
right,
right? They
right,
take a
right.
whether like you said you're excavating these out
Yeah.
of,
And really,
wherever. Yeah.
Tracy, really, I think the characters are more responsible for it than I am, and
Yeah.
that's where the schizophrenia aspect comes from. I had an imaginary friend when I was a child, and I don't remember at all, but my mother and dad told me about Charlotte. And I don't even know where I got that name. My mother said we didn't even know anybody named Charlotte. So we don't know where you came up with it, but she went everything, everywhere with you, and you did everything for her. You chided her, scolded her when she did something wrong. And so I think I never really gave up Charlotte. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that my characters live with me so um, vividly. And when people say, "Well, who were you thinking about? What actor or actress were you thinking about when we wrote that character?" And I went, "I wasn't."
Yeah.
My characters, I see the way I see them.
Yeah.
It's not that I put a portrait in front of me and then put the character in that. I said that's not the way it works.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, at least not for me.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's interesting how everybody's process is completely different.
Yes.
And you're talking about Charlotte, and it came to me like Charlotte's Web. I wonder if it was some kind of Charlotte's
Maybe.
Web thing, where the friendship and all of that. That sounds
It
good.
might very well have been that. I don't know. I never asked that question. I guess I should have.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great. Well, I think you alluded a little bit to the fact that this story picks up, I think, 2 years. It's around the
Hmm.
anniversary of Mitch's wife's murder. And you show clearly in the story that Mitch loved his wife. And
Oh,
he
yes.
never doubted her, right? He loved her, he never doubted her. And when he starts having feelings for Dylan, that's his love interest in this, you allow him to go ahead and explore those feelings.
Hmm.
even though they're maybe, especially in the beginning, a little bit more primal than like deep emotional kind of connection. I
Yes.
might have that wrong, but and I was thinking you could have written it so that he was like riddled with this guilt about wanting Dylan, but you didn't. And I found that that approach was very refreshing. And I was just kind of curious, was that like a conscious decision, or is that just how the story played out for you?
No, it was a conscious decision because it had been, and he's such a vital, masculine man. I mean, he's a tough guy. You know, he was a former Marine. He came home. He got recruited by the DEA, and he'd worked with John prior to his days with the DEA, but he was so good that they recruited him. And um, all of his instincts are masculine. I mean, just like I think Dylan, even though she's a very smart, successful um, psychologist, her reactions to him are all purely feminine,
Mhm.
and so I was gonna allow them to feel what for both of them is a very conflicting uh, feeling because
Mhm.
this attraction they didn't count on, and it came into their lives at one point Dylan in one of her internal dialogues is saying I liked my ordered life. There were no ups and downs. Everything was kind of steady, and she liked that. But then Mitch comes along and is so intrusive into her life. And also, there was no doubt in the reader's mind, and especially if they had read Blood Moon, how totally devoted he was to Angela and his new family, and then we see him throughout Bloodlust, another conflict for him, that's kind of, all these things caving in on him,
Yeah.
is his son, which is who is now a toddler, and the way he interacted with Andrew, I think, was one thing that really
Adorable. Yeah.
won over the readers who have read it in advanced copies because he exercised good parenting. He
Mhm.
wasn't indulgent. He loved the child. And I want to say loves because I still think of him as loving.
Right.
I still think of him as, around.
Right.
But yeah, he treated him, he loved him, but there is a scene where he had to be a parent, a tough parent, and he showed, I thought, excellent parenting
Yeah.
skills. And so I think that was one of the characteristics that really appealed to readers is that they saw a very human side of him, not so much the tough guy, but the guy who was struggling with that aspect of his life as well as everything else. So,
Yeah, absolutely, because he could have fallen into that rhythm that, so many we see in divorced parents where they let their child get away with things a little
right,
bit more out
right,
of guilt and that. And you're right, he didn't. He did
right.
the correction, and then he went and
Yeah.
he told him I loved him, and and all this sort of thing. So yeah, it was great. It was a great scene.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, well, Roland Malone is a bad dude, right? He's a really, really bad dude. But he
I
has a lot of
Yeah.
interesting layers that you explored. And I was just really curious. You can talk about him all you want, but what part of him came to you first, or if you recall?
Oh, the bad guy. The
Yeah.
bad guy.
Yeah.
He had to be ruthless, for your story is only as strong as your villain is villainous. And and so I had, and in this one I really have two, although they approach it very differently. But um, when I conceived Roland, I thought, yeah, this is what he's going to be. He's going to be completely ruthless. And you think someone dead emotionally, uh, his eyes don't reflect any kind of humanity, just, you know. And, but then when I got into him, and he's the one that, pulled the rosary out of his desk drawer.
Mm,
And then I went into, so I didn't think of that, he did. And then his fear of death and going to hell, and much more afraid of his afterlife than in
yeah.
his, living life. And so that was an aspect to his character that I didn't plan on. It's one of those instances I've referred to, is that it just came out of him. And I thought, this really adds a complexity. This is not just a mean guy. He's got some depth. And then the other villain, Oz, uh, was a completely different kind of villain. He was the one that, I mean, if you saw Roland coming, you'd be scared. But when people saw Oz, they didn't see a villain. They saw everybody's best friend,
Yeah.
let me help you, let me. And so that's a scary villain too, in my estimation, because it's the ones you don't see
Right.
sometimes
He's the one that
that,
you let in your house, right?
right, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on this show, we like to talk about a story stakes. I always like to joke, love, death, the fate of the realm. Those are all big, high stakes in a story that we love. But I'd like to hear about what's personally at stake for maybe your main character, Mitch.
Uh,
He seems like he might have the most to lose if he doesn't succeed.
well, I think for one thing, his career, the way he's you know, neglecting it, and on the outs with John. It's either a do or die for their friendship that has been a bond that both of them cherished, for years. His success or failure of falling in love again and being able to feel okay with it. I loved what he said at the very end of the book. And so he's kind of, you want your character to have an arc. And we see him in the beginning in the bottom of the pit. And
Hmm.
then all of the resolution that came of it is not perfect, but it was satisfying. He reached his goal, but in a way that had its own honor. And I think that was one thing we wanted to see. We didn't want to see Mitch becoming the person that he was trying to destroy. And so I think that was, I mean, in every aspect of his life, there was a high stake.
Yeah.
Not like the continuation of the realm, but it was the continuation or the reinvention of his realm, so to
Right. Yeah.
speak. And
Yeah.
so he could have kept on that self-destructive path, um, or he could, turn things around. And I
Yeah.
think he proved that he was capable of that and
Sure
feel
did.
good about it and feel, a new sense of hope, purpose, a new love, a better relationship with his son. So all of those things were at stake for him.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Well, changing gears just a little bit, I always like to ask the authors, what's one thing readers might be surprised to learn about you?
Oh, how fearful I
Mm,
am every single day come up to this keyboard and look at a white screen with a blinking cursor and know that I've got to scale this wall of fear that any kind of craft, I don't like the
Mm.
word talent, but any storytelling ability that I had has completely flown, disappeared, vaporized. Um, it's every day is like I haven't ever done this before.
I'll
And
bet.
I've written, you referenced my number of books. Um, Bloodlust is number 88.
Oh gosh,
And
over 80. Okay.
I've just finished the first draft of number 89.
Okay.
So, but it's like starting over every day. Like, ugh, what do I know now that I didn't know when I wrote my first book? And of course, I would like to think that over the course of 88 books, I would I would have learned a lot. But then I got about 15 chapters into the work I'm working on right now, the project, and I thought, why am I doing that? That I know better than that. I know better than that. And I had to go back to the beginning and change a lot of things, move a lot of things around.
Hmm.
I wasn't following my own rules that I know, and I don't know why, just distraction, I think, or something. I don't know.
Hmm.
But I had to go back and do weeks of just correction on what I'd already written before I could go on. So I have learned along the way, but still it's like, oh, can I do this one more time? I've said that
Yeah.
88 times. Can I do this one more time? And sometimes I come in here and I look at this bookshelf and I think, did I really write all of that? Did I really? And I'll open a book randomly, just pull it off the shelf and open it up and I'll go, I don't I remember what the story's about, but I don't remember writing this. I don't remember
Mm.
writing that paragraph. I don't remember. That's a pretty good paragraph. I don't, that's a pretty good scene of rapid fire dialogue.
Yeah.
Um, I don't remember, I don't remember doing that. And so
Yeah.
I think go into a stream of consciousness that's kind of otherworldly, kind of out of it, and that my fingers do a lot of the thinking for me. But it is what people wouldn't know is the fear factor, I think, the paranoia that those 88 books previous to the one I'm writing today had been flukes. I was just so lucky to pull it across,
Oh.
and, you know, it still feels like, can I do another one? So
Hmm.
yeah,
Well, thank you.
I'm never comfortable. It's always something more to do, something, some other thing to try, some other story to tell. Um, but I'm never comfortable when I look at that bookshelf, and see number one New York Times bestsellers. And so far, 78 of that 88 have been New York Times bestsellers. But it doesn't count when you sit down at this keyboard.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
where it matters. And
Mm.
so I take the job very seriously and with a lot of responsibility because by now I feel responsible to my readers to, if they're going to plunk their money down on a book by me, I want them to get their money's worth. So
Yeah.
I try to tell a different story every time. I try to make the characters as compelling as the last set of characters. Their situation is problematic and dramatic, melodramatic. I love melodrama. I love it. In the TV shows I watch, in the movies I watch, I love melodrama. I don't dismiss that. As a detriment at all. And I want to give them a good time. I want to give them a break from what's going on in their lives.
Yeah. Well, mission accomplished, Sandra.
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry. I'm sorry that's what that you're facing that every time you come to the keyboard. And thank you for sharing something so personal with us, because it really does show to folks that, you would think after 88 books that it would get easier, and that might not be the case for everybody. So it's good to see the different perspective there.
Answered similar questions like that in speaking engagements. In my program, someone would ask, about where do you get your ideas or something like that. And those are difficult questions to answer. It sounds so coy when you say, well, they just kind of come to me. If I knew where
Mhm.
they came from, that's what I'd sell. When they have to spend months in this chair. But it, yeah, I don't know where they come from.
Mhm.
Sometimes I mean, it's all different ways books have been written. A song on the radio, great title. I'm going to use that in a book. A character, gosh, that would be an interesting profession. I'm going to do that. Or that controversy. How can I, how can I approach that, flip that some way? Someone gets a heart transplant and then someone wants to kill them, not for them, but for the heart they got.
Mm.
I mean, that's kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
irony. You get a heart to save your life, and all of a sudden, someone wants to kill you because of it. So it's been just all different things like that, and I don't know where they sprang from, but um, they did,
Yeah.
and I'm grateful
Yeah,
to
we are
Charlotte.
grateful too. Yes, thank you, Charlotte. Really appreciate the help. All right. Well, before we go, can you share what's coming up next? You had mentioned that you're working on a new project. Are you able to talk about it, or
Not
need
quite
to?
yet. Not quite
Okay.
yet. I do have a title. My publisher's so glad about that because I have sent in books that were untitled Sandra Brown up to the day where they went to print. And they just,
Oh.
and then something weird occurred to me. But, and then other books, the titles there immediately. Envy, I knew because I used the word in my thought process. So one success, one failure, the one that fails has such envy for, and I went, that's the
Uh,
title,
mm,
and then just other ways in which they've come. But I do have a title and it fits, and the publisher likes it, and the sales people like it, something they can really shop. And so I feel good about it.
good.
I've got first draft itis right now. I'm thinking, why did I think that was a good idea? But as soon as my tour is over, I will go away. Not try not to look at my phone all day, limit my email exposure because invariably I'll open it up and there'll be, 12
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
have to respond to, but I will lock myself away. The book is due at the end of April, so I'm in a good position, and I will spend practically that month um, shut away and finishing. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, folks, be sure to order your copy of Bloodlust today. You can find more about Sandra by visiting her website at sandrabrown.net. That's N-E-T, not .com, but .net, where you'll find all of her social media links, and be sure to sign up for her newsletter while you're there. Sandra, thank you so much for joining
Thank
me. As
you,
I mentioned,
Tracy.
this
It
is
was my pleasure. My
oh
pleasure.
gosh, such a dream
Such,
come true. Really appreciate you taking the time,
oh,
and I hope you have an amazing launch.
thank you very much. I appreciate it so much. Thank you.
That's it for today's high stakes story. Follow the show so the next episode lands right in your feed. And if you enjoyed today's chat, a quick rating or review helps new listeners find us. Visit tracydevlyn.com/podcast for show notes and links to today's amazing guest and their fabulous book. High Stakes is a proud member of the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. Thanks for listening. Until next time, enjoy the adventure, everyone.